Greetings, innovators and leaders. This is AI for the C-Suite, your compass for navigating the exponential age. I'm your host, Chad Harvey, and we're here to bring you cutting-edge insights on AI tailored specifically for middle-market organizations. Buckle up as we embark on a journey through the transformative world of artificial intelligence. Today, we are diving into Microsoft Copilot with two exceptional experts who are helping organizations leverage this powerful AI tool. Jan Lehman is the CEO and visionary of CTC Productivity, bringing over 15 years of expertise in helping companies optimize their Microsoft 365 environment. As a globally recognized productivity expert featured in Forbes, Business Journal, and Entrepreneur, Jan's career includes leadership roles at Accenture and Kraft Foods, where she managed IT and IS activities across Scandinavia. Her team specializes in helping organizations maximize productivity through Microsoft solutions, including Copilot implementation. Joining Jan today is Rafe Johnson, part of the CTC Productivity team. Rafe brings extensive experience in cloud tech, having served as a CXO and cloud program manager. His background includes roles at Wayfair, Shreve, Crump & Lowe, and Bain & Company, where he implemented cloud-first strategies and led digital transformations. With an MBA from Boston University's Questrom School of Business, Rafe combines technical expertise with business acumen to help organizations transform their digital workspaces. Today, Jan and Rafe will share insights on why Microsoft Copilot should be your AI tool of choice and how it can revolutionize your organization's productivity. Let's dive in. Jan, Rafe, welcome to AI for the C-Suite.
Thanks, Chad. You make us sound like super important and smart. I love this.
Keep going. I'm loving it too.
I'm like, I want to talk to you every morning before I start my day.
We can make that happen. Everything's available for a fee, Jan.
Business.
Yeah, that's right. All right. I said we're going to dive right in, so let's dive right in. I know that you both believe that Copilot should be considered first as an AI tool of choice for businesses. So, what specific advantages do you feel that Copilot offers over other AI tools in the market? And I'll feel free to take a counterpoint if we need a spiky point of view. So, go for Copilot.
All right, let's do it. Okay. So when we look at AI, and especially when you look at small and medium businesses, enterprise, I'm usually looking at it from two different angles. The first is the user. So the end user who's going to use it, what's a simple, like how simple is it for you to use it? And then the second side is really from the kind of administrator IT management side. So I'll hit on both of those here. For end users, the ease of use with it being already a Microsoft product, having the ability to just get a license to start using it, being able to hop on in, whether it's through SharePoint, whether it's through Outlook, it's through Word, Excel, those apps that you're using every single day. The integrations with Copilot into those apps that you see, I think makes it really simple, easy, and from there, it's that part of the Microsoft brand that they know and love. So it's really not a hard sell for the end users, especially now that AI is being thrown around everywhere. People want to start using it, which then kind of gets into, so as an IT administrator, as someone that's actually rolling these out, helping companies behind the scenes really adopt it, how do you let them use AI tools, but yet still have the guardrails in place? And I think that's something that Microsoft does really well. So when you look at the security, when you look at the compliance, which as a normal end user, they're probably not thinking about too much. They just want to use the fun new tools. They want to get in, get answers, get their job done quickly. But how do we say, these questions that you're asking these large language models, asking these different tools, how do we make sure that they're not fed back in the system? How do we ensure that this potentially compliant, sensitive information, PII that you might be putting out there, it's not feeding it back in? And Copilot, Microsoft, from the beginning, I think they're actually one of the first ones to say, let's containerize our tool. Let's make sure that this data does not leak. It doesn't get out. And Microsoft does that for both what we'll call the Bing free included app, as well as the paid. So from the get-go, having your users, jumping in an app and really dipping their toes in the water, having it be that safe place is really where, from an IT administration standpoint, we can say really wins out. Make sure that we're not getting the wild west of different tools floating around. People, you no longer have any type of insight into what they're using. And then even from the Microsoft side is we can block other apps. We can say just use Copilot to really keep their environment secure as nice as possible. So for me, having them kind of centralize around the one app, Microsoft does it really well. for users and from an IT admin perspective.
One of the things that I hear a lot when Copilot discussions come up, and I've heard this more than once, is folks, and this goes directly to something that you were talking about, Rafe. One of the questions that comes up very consistently is folks not understanding the levels of permission that they need to set on the back end for Copilot to allow it access to different sets of information. There's a story running around the business community in my region about they didn't set the permissions right, and so all of the salary information from the salary tables was available that you could ChatGPT or Copilot-esque your way through some of that. So you're nodding your head. Have you encountered this question before?
Now, I've encountered the question. The good news is we always set our tenants up the right way, so we've never personally experienced this, right, Jan?
Good answer, Ray.
So we've never experienced it, but yes, I hear it. And that kind of brings into a whole other side of the question is Microsoft is huge, right? So you have your emails, you have your Teams messages, you have your files. Almost everything within your enterprise is stored within this one, and lack of a better term, software bundle. So if things aren't set up correctly, you could be letting the wolves run loose. So I've never experienced it because when you build a SharePoint site, when you use Microsoft 365 groups, I hope permissions are in the back end where people are setting it up. And Copilot is not one of those apps that if you do not have access to it, you're not going to see it. So it's not like by giving them the license that you're giving access to all files, still following that Microsoft enterprise grade security where they can see only what they can. Hopefully you have a good IT administrator there behind the scenes that has set it up correctly. So I've heard the stories, never seen it. And like I said, you should be probably contacting someone to get that set up before you kind of jump into that deep end there. Absolutely.
Rafe, on that note, though, you've told me multiple times that when we first come into a client environment, it is not at all surprising that things are not set up properly, right? And you find the exposure and the opportunity. Is that true? It's like people don't realize how openly Microsoft is installed and they don't know how to lock it down.
And that's a good point is when you look at Microsoft, part of the name of the game in the modern workplace is collaboration, co-authoring, sharing. And the flip side to that is that's all great and wonderful. And we still want to let you use all those new tools, but we want to lock it down so our users aren't doing something they shouldn't. So the first thing we do is, we look at the SharePoint site, we look at the files, look at the OneDrive, ensure everything's good, buttoned up, build the pillars of the tenant before you say, okay, now jump into Copilot. And that's another benefit, of course, I need to keep throwing that in there, is the fact that it can read through all of this data, cut through the clutter, look at your emails, Teams, where you try a lot of those other AI tools out there. It's not going to have the depth or the ability to really read that stuff that you're in every single day or creating every day.
Rafe, this might be a very technical question, but issues of fine-tuning and training with some of the large language models have come up in some of my other conversations. And I'm curious, how is this working on the back end with a company's data? Is Microsoft Copilot essentially creating little mini RAGs that they are then relying on to give you more tailored answers? Or just at a high level, what's that structure look like?
Yeah, and I can't tell you exactly when Microsoft did it, but when you look at Microsoft overall, the end users are seeing their files, right? They're doing it through the nice user experience, user interface. When they're looking at their emails, that's saved in Exchange Online. But behind it is really the kind of pillar, the infrastructure, which is the Microsoft Graph. And the Microsoft Graph is every single thing that you do, that you touch within Microsoft. That's from auditing. When you click on a button, that's being tracked. When you're going ahead and saving a file, not only do you have the file, you have all the information behind it. So what it's really doing is it's stored on Microsoft Azure, the cloud, it's in the cloud for lack of a better term there. And it's saying, okay, let's go ahead and ping this environment, this database of all of your data that's already there and bringing it back to you. You have to remember that when, Copilot originally came out, OpenAI was really involved with it using the ChatGPT 4 module. Now it's Turbo. So it's still having some of that for, let's say, the out of the Microsoft box experience, because you can still do web searches, you can do all that. But really, when it comes to that internal containerized, where we're only looking at your Microsoft data, we're not going to go ahead and push that out to any language model. It's built off of the Microsoft Azure backbone and looking at your specific graph that's specific to you, has your data in it.
Got it. I think something else that comes up an awful lot, and I want to get a specific answer from either you or Jen here on this, is there's a lot of confusion around what Copilot is, right? Microsoft perennially has branding problems. Yes, you're laughing.
Well
I'm trying to be tactful here. So
true.
what is Copilot? Because I have seen at least 4 different products labeled with Copilot at various points over the last 18 months. So when we're talking about Copilot, what are we talking about here exactly?
It's everything, right? It's everything. Yeah.
It's all around us.
And as I'm sure you're learning here, I love Copilot. And one of the biggest, complaints I could have about it is Microsoft's branding and marketing team is so good that when they came out with the videos, when they were, just releasing it out, everybody was salivating. They're like, "Ooh, this sounds so great. It's lovely. And the marketing is getting you on board." And then the behind the screens, us as IT admins are freaking out, crying in a corner saying, "How are we going to do this?" But what I would say is Copilot is it really is think of the centralized brain that's bringing together all of your different software, data, tools, apps within the Microsoft world. It also has an arm that reaches out and talks to the World Wide Web, the websites out there, the information out there. And now, even in the past couple months, it's taken a step forward where if you're now looking at buying a new device, we're going to throw Mac users out the window for a second. We're not going to talk about them. We love you all, we do. But when it comes to the world of Copilot, if you're looking at buying a new PC, Windows 11, there's the Copilot Plus devices now, which has almost a centralized brain within your device that talks to your applications itself. So it's even stepping out of the containerized, looking at the web, to now what's actually happening physically on your device. So when I say it's everything, is 2 months from now, it'll be something new that they're adding on top of it, I'm sure. What it'll be yet, we don't know, but it's taking over everything. It's true.
Fair enough. Jan, I know that you walk in to a lot of doors in a lot of organizations, and you've been doing this for a long time. And so you've seen the Microsoft ecosystem evolve. And I would imagine that one of the questions that you're getting quite often right now is, why should we use Copilot? What kind of competitive advantage is this going to give us based on how we're already working? What's your go-to answer or reply to a question like that?
Yeah, well, we don't sell Microsoft product. We're productivity folks trying to get people to be more productive at the end of the day. And what we're realizing is they're not leveraging their software, and they don't realize the built-in integration within the suite of tools. So even before Copilot, we're trying to get companies to realize being all in with the Microsoft suite is just a smart thing to drive productivity because of the integrations. Now that Copilot's on board, it's yet one more reason for companies to be all in. One, to save money on third-party subscriptions. And then also because Copilot leverages your data. So if you're using a third-party tool like Smartsheets or 90.io or something like that, something outside, Copilot cannot easily access that. So to me, it's a waste because you're not taking advantage of all your data fully when your ecosystem is spread so thin. So that's kind of where I come in, is to me, it's just a wasted thing for people to be paying third-party subscriptions, not fully leveraging their data.
And if I could throw in really quickly, the only thing I would jump in there, Jan, is yet, the word of yet, because there are a lot of new third-party software integrations within Copilot, in Copilot Studio, which is where you can build your own agents, your own bots. In the past 3 weeks, if you look at the list of third-party softwares that it connects to, you'd be surprised. So
awesome.
Yet is the key word.
Interesting. Okay, I just learned something new here. I didn't realize there was a Copilot Studio. All right. Okay. We may need to return for a separate episode just on that, because I know there's a lot of interest out there about building your own agents, building different tools around some of these systems in the Microsoft ecosystem. Let's step into the issue of workflow. And I know just from the past, even before AI came on the scene, we were having a lot of issues with companies trying to integrate and incorporate cloud-first strategies into their workflows. And now we're layering on Copilot, which is also a cloud service, but we've still got a lot of sunk costs. We got a lot of legacy systems. And quite frankly, we've just got a lot of inefficiencies out there. So I don't know whether this is a Jan or a Rafe or a duo question here, but what are some of the most common challenges you're seeing when companies try to integrate these AI tools like Copilot into their existing workflows? And how often, this is the bonus question, how often do you have to help them reinvent their workflows?
Rafe, you're going to be the default for most of these.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Chad, that was so sweet of you to lob one over. I could answer it. So thanks.
We still love you, Jen. Every day. The answer is every day. And it's not so much, I would say, with like restructuring data. Now, sometimes when people think of data, they think of files, right? So in order to leverage Copilot, we have to get your files off of that server that's stored in a basement somewhere that's, 10 years old, put that into something like SharePoint, put that into something like OneDrive. That's actually the easy part, is getting the data into Microsoft. Now, when we kind of flip it and say, how do we get them to start using it and using it smartly? That's where it takes time, right? It's little incremental steps that you have to make forward. As simple as, how do you talk to Copilot, right? How do you talk to an AI model and actually give it the response that you want back? There's a little bit of prompting, having them, even if it's an hour-long call and me giving examples of, this is how I asked it. Oh, wait, it didn't give me the answer that you're looking for. Let's try it a little bit different. Or taking a step back and asking questions first. So who are you? I am an IT admin. Okay, what are you looking to do? I'm looking to create a script for PowerShell. Okay, what next? And so having them walk through it, and even if it doesn't pertain to their daily workflow, getting them in the thought of how to ask the questions help. Now, from there, it's then having them talk about, okay, you can ask another question. You could do a follow-up, almost like talking to your best friend. Those are the type of challenges that I see more. Workflows, I mean, we could get into a whole 2-hour discussion on Power Automate, having them use some fun tools within the Microsoft world. But once they usually get the kind of the pillars, like I like to call SharePoint, files are in there. They have a front entrance doorway to get to those files. We get them on Microsoft Teams. We get them chatting. We get them out of email as much as possible, get them out of text. From there, what tool do we want to use next? Maybe Planner, things like that. Getting them into those tools. Once they're in there, it usually works really well. Then it's the optimization phase. And actually, Jan, I think I'm going to lob this over to you, looking at the different parts of the process, and especially like what we say at CTC, right?
What do you mean, Ray? Sorry.
So like you look at the discovery, the optimize phases, the different phases we have when it comes to Microsoft.
Yes. Yeah, you're talking about our assess, that whole thing?
Exactly.
Yes, yeah. So typically our process is we assess, like peek under the hood, see how everything's set up, what the issues are, do migration, really getting everybody migrated over, and then optimize is when we go into all the bells and whistles on top. So that's the phases. I didn't expect you to pass a question to me. I'm like, whoa. I'm just getting my popcorn and listen to you. That's all I'm doing.
So that leads to another question. You've both touched on in our dialogue thus far the issue that keeping things within the Microsoft environment allows organizations to have enhanced data security and privacy, right? So what I'm wondering here is, are there any security concerns or maybe a different way of phrasing this would be, are there any governance structures that are different that you recommend when utilizing Copilot that are different than the governance structures that you've already put in place regarding your existing security concerns? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And my gut reaction, and I'm sure someone's going to say, haha, no, there's something else there, is no, there's not much of a difference. And the reason why is because of where the data's at. If you have good data security compliance posture from the beginning, rolling in and putting in Copilot should be simple. It should be quite easy. Now, usually we'll throw in additional steps afterwards to say, now that we have you in Copilot, you know how to use it, we're going to take an extra step and lock down other third-party tools. And I'm not going to lie, I have had people at my door with torches and pitchforks saying, we're not getting rid of Gemini, we're not going to get rid of ChatGPT. But it's like, no, you actually need to, because now we have you in this tool, we want to secure it down, and you may be the most security conscious person in the world. You're probably going to ask it a question that you shouldn't, or ask a third-party bot, don't know where it's feeding back into a question you shouldn't. So from there, locking it down further. But if you have your data retention, you have your auditing on, you have the devices joined to Microsoft using Intune, their tools, everything's within the software already, there shouldn't need to be too much else that you do. if you've set it up correctly.
Okay, that's fair. One of the things that I really want to get to here today are some concrete examples of how Copilot's integrated into the Microsoft ecosystem, specific applications, integration with workflows. I know you've touched on this before, and you mentioned the ecosystem with third-party apps out there. So can you give us or provide us with some concrete examples of how Copilot works with different Microsoft applications and perhaps third-party apps as well, and how this is helping with the workflows and some of the more traditional productivity issues that middle market companies struggle with?
Absolutely. So usually when we look at when we're going to roll out something like Copilot, there's a couple of departments at small and medium businesses that just pick up on it really quickly, and it's a huge time saver. The first group that I always say is if you have a marketing team, a marketing department, roll that license on there. The reason is they're probably spending a lot of their day creating copy, creating text, creating different flyers, maybe throw in the sales team because they're doing presentations to talk about your products, and even ourselves. So we do a Friday call where we're talking to different clients, showing them the latest, greatest thing within Microsoft. Rather than spending the time starting from scratch, creating the presentation every time, we could say, we want to talk about SharePoint this week. So we go to Copilot and I say, Copilot, give me the top 20 content pieces about SharePoint. It spits it out for me. Then I go open up my PowerPoint desktop app, which we all know and love, been around forever, one of those staples within the Microsoft world. I say, these are my 20 bullet points. Create me a presentation and slides with images with this content. So creating a presentation goes from 3 to 4 hours down to 30 minutes. And I like to say with it is you're never going to get 100% of the way there. It'll get you about 90. You still have to do some manual input, manual work there, but the time saving alone for creating that content, creating that copy, putting in the images, getting it to look nice makes it so much easier. So marketing team loves it. Another one is I say your executive team. If you are a busy executive, and Jan, I think you can probably side with me, as I haven't met an executive that's not busy, especially at a small and medium business. So having the ability to say, go through my calendar events for the day and tell me which ones do I need to follow up on, or which ones do I need to prepare for. It's going to give you that feedback saying you have a meeting at this time with this person. You sent an email to them last week saying you were going to send them a statement of work. Make sure that you have that ready. So even small things like that, preparing your executives for their day ahead, the marketing sales team creating presentations. You could even look at it as, I don't know how many people are creating their own documentation, but I have seen people create their HR employee handbook using Copilot as well. So HR team, let's throw them in there too.
All right. So let's say I'm a CEO, right? I'm in the leadership team. Maybe I'm not the CEO. Maybe I'm, I don't know, CTO or CFO or EIEIO. I'm in some kind of C-suite role, right? You mentioned the PowerPoint presentations, which I think a lot of folks are really going to gravitate towards, because if I'm an executive, I'm giving different demonstrations at different trade association gatherings, things like that. That's going to be great. You also mentioned the calendaring. What are some other go-to levers that you would pull with an executive that's operating at a fairly high level, doesn't get down in the weeds too much, not building a lot of documents and things like that, mostly using the Microsoft productivity stack to drive the organization forward and make better decisions? So what are some other applications that I, as a leader in the company, should be looking at?
Sure. So specifically for the kind of C-suite top level executives, having it create emails for you. As sad as it sounds, yep. So I've used it once or twice. Jan, never to you though, don't worry. Or if there's a really long email, so maybe you are someone that needs to say, I have 10 reportees that are emailing me with their weekly summary. There's no TLDR, too long, didn't read type of top there. I don't have time to read through this email. Can you give me the gist of it in 5 bullet points? Get that email, go to the top right, do Copilot and say, summarize this for me. It does that, great, saves you time from reading that whole email. Or if you're sending out a mass email, you can go ahead, maybe you have your weekly leadership meeting. You want to go ahead and you're the person responsible for sending out the meeting notes to the entire organization, letting them know the direction. You don't want to spend that much time creating the email. Get the AI recap notes, which Copilot gives you as well. Throw it in there and say, write this, take a quick look, send it out. trying to think of other things,
No, I
that
think
is
that's good.
typically, yeah, okay.
No,
It's a great
I
one,
think,
Ray.
yeah, that is really good. And you actually hit on exactly a Copilot use that an executive just talked to me about the other week, which was that email summarization. So well done, sir. No, that's good.
It's almost like this is my job, right?
Yeah, almost.
Thank goodness it's not mine.
Oh my gosh. So let me set the stage for my next question here, and it's not going to be nearly as daunting as it sounds up front. There was a paper in 2018 that measured productivity gains from general purpose technologies. It was then updated again in 2020, and you can find it on the MIT site. There's some other things there, but basically they're talking about a J curve, and they talk about a 12 to 36 month lag in productivity when you implement a general purpose technology like AI. And what I'm interested in is, based on the work that you've seen, are you seeing any type of delays in the productivity when you implement Copilot? And also, I'm interested how you counsel leaders on measuring productivity gains, because that's another area that I think organizations really struggle with when they're implementing these AI technologies. So I'll just kind of serve that up, and I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I can see exactly where that survey is coming in, especially when you're looking at, and I'll just use an example of maybe you're going from Salesforce to Dynamics 365, a whole new tool, getting people to learn about it, where to click on the buttons. There is going to be that lag. Once they finally figure it out, moves right up there. And I wish I had some data points for you here, but just anecdotally from the different clients that we work with, I don't see that lag with Copilot or AI.
No.
I would say if there is a lag, it's probably going to be about 30 days. And that 30 days is, how do I ask my question? How do I get the answer I'm looking for? But the more that people use it, and once it kind of clicks, and it's like talking to your best friend, right? Once you figure out exactly what they want to hear, brings it back the answer. I would say the lag is nowhere near that kind of 24 to 38, especially because they're already using content that's in there. So if you want to say, who is that? Give me my team's message for the day. It's going to tell you the people. Those people, their positions, you have that background. So no, I wouldn't say that there's been much of a delay. And actually, Jen, we recently put you on Copilot as well. I wouldn't say recently, but a couple months. Did you notice any?
Yeah, no, what I was going to share is I'm not seeing a lag at all, but where I am seeing is people are getting sloppy and they're depending on it too much. They're not double checking that kind of stuff. So I had a client the other day that was trying to use Copilot for a PowerPoint like 2 hours before the presentation. It just fully assuming everything is going to go perfect, right? And it's not going to go perfect. So I don't see the lag at all, Ched, but definitely that there's a need to double check and validate before you send it out.
Right. I can't imagine waiting until 2 hours before a presentation to actually build the presentation.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah.
My jaw kind of hit the floor.
So confident that AI is helping. It can do everything super fast. And I was like, whoa, that seems a little scary. So, yeah.
And I think we've all heard the story of the lawyer that once used AI to create his case law, which please don't do that, folks. If you're a lawyer, don't do that. If you're a doctor, please don't operate on me based off of Copilot. That's not what it's there for, right?
That's exactly right. And if you're interested in more legal opinion, please see our previous episode with Emily Tate from Jones Day, where we dig into copyright issues. Little plug for her episode there.
Awesome.
So, you mentioned and you used the phrase treating Copilot as your, quote, best friend, Rafe. I'm interested because I know when I use a lot of the other frontier models, and I've used them intensively enough and that a lot of them are starting to, quote, know me, right? How well does Copilot get to know an individual within an organization based on their usage patterns?
Ooh, good question. Now, I would say Copilot probably knows you better than you know yourself. The reason is that Copilot now, and I think it's going to only get more scary if you consider that scary, or more exciting if this really thrills you, is
scary.
That
scary is the right word.
if you look at how many emails you've sent out in your business lifetime, right? So if you're an executive, you've been there for 10 years, hundreds of thousands of emails you have sent out, responded to with your tone, who you are, how you like to respond to people. Now let's add in, okay, emails probably been to external users, clients, people outside of the org. Now let's add in Teams, which Teams has GIFs, Teams has fun, it's emojis, we're going to talk internally. So now it also knows how you talk more to your employees, your colleagues above you and below you, and to get more of your personal sense. It can also read the files that you write as well. So when you look at that holistically of what it can know about you, At the moment, and here's, I think I've made it clear I'm a Microsoft fanboy, but this is where I'll say Microsoft could do better, and where it is putting a lot of effort into saying, when you go write that email as an executive, the ability for it to say, sound like me, right? And write it in your tone, your words. Microsoft has released that. It is getting better. Is it exactly where I want yet? No. But the amount of data points that it has on you is going to be so much greater than any other tool out there, especially if you've been using Microsoft for a long time, which a lot of small and medium businesses, even enterprise, have been. So it might even know more than your mother. I don't know.
Well, and that begs another question that I hadn't thought of till now. One of the counsels that I often give organizations when they're first experimenting with AI is go to your brand book, right? We all have a brand book, or we should, right? In terms of our fonts, our colors, our logo applications. Part of that brand book needs to include the tone and the voice of your organization for writing purposes. And I'm wondering, could you use Copilot to generate the voice and the tone brand to add to the brand book for an organization? Have you seen anybody do that yet, or is that possible even?
I wouldn't say specifically for the brand book, but I have used it for tone, words, and how you want to respond to clients. So a really good example is an owner that they are an investment broker. They do investments for clients, high net worth individuals. And every single time they had a meeting, which yearly, bi-yearly meeting with their client, they would have to write up a recap, tell them, everything that they said in the call. What we've now done and worked together is we've created one Word document that we consider our client email template. So we've taken one of his best examples, put it into a document. Now, every time that a call is recorded with a client, we get that AI recap notes, we put it into Copilot, and then we say, hey, Copilot, little slash, the forward slash is how you reference a file. Now reference this file and create a new email I can send to my client based off of our template and our call we just made. It puts the same exact formats in the paragraphs with the bullets below and does an amazing job. And just the amount of hours that saves them per week, phenomenal. So it's getting there. Can it read exactly? Well, it can read PDFs. It can read images, colors, things like that. But is it going to give you like the full, hex code, colors, all of that? Probably not yet, but matter of time.
Well, and you reminded me of something else. When I build GPTs or when I'm working with a project in Anthropic or something like that, I will oftentimes provide not just templates, but also training materials as well. And you referenced that template document there in your email example. Is there a specific or I'm using air quotes for our audio listeners, a special place where templates like that need to live in Copilot?
So yes, and actually, this is getting into that world of Copilot Studio and as well as Copilot agents.
I want to talk to you about those, so we're going there next.
All right. Do you mind if I go into that now, or do we want to wait?
No. Give me your answer on this, then we're going to go right to agents.
Okay. Yeah. So Copilot Studio is more of like, what you're doing. You want to build these things yourself. You have some background in how to do the prompting, the instructions, all of that. And you can, of course, there's 3 different boxes that you can put in starter prompts, put in the description, put in who you are, what you are, thousands of characters of giving it that background. Copilot Studio, really nice, easy, does it. The newer Copilot agent, which doesn't require any other subscription than your Microsoft 365 Copilot, it's much more watered down, but it's made for your average user that's not going to be, playing with the bells and whistles like you might, Chad. So, you give it your one sentence, like, I'm creating a AI agent for this specific purpose. Go grab my knowledge source, which might be just this SharePoint site, just this folder, just this location. And every time I tell you to do this, pull in that prompt, pull in that data, give me the similar response every single time. So that's exactly the direction it's going in. And the ability to save previous prompts, which I've been asking for years. It's finally out there. It's doing much better. So yeah, it's changing as often you change your socks.
Can you then go in and edit those saved prompts or use Copilot to make those prompts better?
You can, and especially for like the agents, you can go back in and change it as much as you want. A really good example of, I had one organization I was working with, and they had an Excel where they had hundreds of thousands of archive files stored on a traditional server, in the basement server 2016. Luckily, it wasn't 2012 R2. And they needed a way to have their staff members ask for this type of client name, where in this jungle of files could it be? So we had an Excel, we had, this is the client name, this is the location. We hooked it up to one of those agents that said they could type in any client name and it responded with that column with the exact, SWAC, name, folder, client, all of that. So the IT person was ecstatic because he no longer had to go find that, send an email out to the client. That was one prompt. Always look at the same document, pull it up. And then I had to go back and say, okay, if it returns with 10 lines, which are pretty long in terms of that kind of file path, bold it. Then I went back in and said, make a space between them so it's much easier to read. And you get that logic of keep adding steps to it, make it as nice as you want in the end, till you get to your final destination.
Very good. All right. Let's talk agents. I would love to know about any specific business issues that you've resolved with custom Copilot agents, or some examples of some agents that you've created for clients and the problems that they've addressed. So talk to us about agents.
Ooh, yes. So one of my favorite agents that I've been working on and just overall has probably helped us the most is a Microsoft 365 support agent. So, we love all of our clients. I love getting on calls like this, getting on calls with the clients, but unfortunately, I do need to sleep. I do need to eat, and I'm not there 24/7. So what we've done is we've created an AI agent through Copilot called Monty. Really cute, really nice, has a little computer screen as his icon.
He doesn't look like Clippy, does he?
No, he's not as creepy as Clippy.
Okay, thank God.
We do. If I get married, Clippy's coming. He does that. He does wedding appearances. That was a joke, everybody.
Oh, my.
So what we were able to do is we created a whole SharePoint site and put all of our documentations, the main frequently asked questions. We then put it to knowledge sources of these files, our own documentation itself. So when I'm out of the office, I can't respond. People can mention the agent, and it's in Teams. It's natively embedded in a Teams channel to say, hey, Monty, can you respond? How do I reset Intune? How do I train my users on Copilot? It then pulls that information from SharePoint and our trusted knowledge source. So it's not going out to the web to some random Reddit, which I love Reddit. So this is not a hit on Reddit whatsoever. But the topics can get
probably not the best training source, though.
Exactly.
It's a
well
scary
said,
training
Chad.
source.
Yeah.
So you can actually say these knowledge sources, get them the information that we've already approved and bring it back. And we have users, asking questions 10 times a day, 11 times a day. Really easy to use, nice, easy, saves a lot of time from my end. Other examples is you need to compare really large spreadsheets in Excel. Unless you're an Excel wizard, can take a lot of time. So that one example is, we have 10,000 different rows, 2 columns. We want to compare the two or say, find information in this column, bring me back that one. Really nice, easy to use. And even something like there's an engineering firm that has different states that they work in. They have uploaded all of their files in PDFs, Word, you name it, to that SharePoint site. And then we created an agent for their engineering architects to say, can you give me the newest regulations, rules for the state of California? Goes there, does it, really kind of niche, but for them, saves a lot of time, make sure that their projects are done right. So if you can think of it, we can probably build it.
Okay.
Rafe, it's too bad you don't enjoy this. You can just see the energy behind his answer. It's awesome.
It frustrates me sometimes, but doesn't
When you spoke about comparing the different files, it begged a question that I hadn't thought about with Copilot before, which is one that we run into with the more mainstream user-facing models, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, in terms of context limits and in terms of the size of the files and the number of files that you can work with. So when you were talking about that engineering firm comparing the different Excel files and using an agent for that, I'm wondering, is there a limit at which you will crash out Copilot if you give it too much information to analyze and compare?
Oof. I don't have a spreadsheet or, exact numbers, but what I can say from my experience, we have SharePoint sites, we have SharePoint files with 100,000 documents in the document library. Copilot reads through it, powers through it. And you know what? The fact that it can potentially go through 100,000 files and bring you an answer in 8 seconds, I consider that a win in my book. Mm-hmm. Pretty darn good. The other pieces is in Excel. Right now, the max that I personally built it on, I think it was 10 or 12,000 rows, 2 different columns. So it wasn't the largest Excel, but the fact that it took 2 seconds, went through and then pulled you multiple. So some results, some clients were used a lot. So there was 10, there was 20 results, put it all there, separated it out for you. So as long as your data is within a Microsoft environment like SharePoint, OneDrive, the limits, you're really not going to see too much when it comes to the agents. Where you could still see limits is when you're trying to ask your question. So most, if you're not paying for the Microsoft 365 Copilot, you're using the kind of free included, there are still limits like 2,000 characters for asking your question. So copying and pasting a whole, text into Copilot isn't really going to help. But that's when we say, let's flip the script. And rather than you copying and pasting the text within Copilot, do your /whack and then grab that file that's saved in SharePoint, because then you don't have the limit. And I've even seen it go through a 300-page PDF.
Wow. You talked about Copilot chewing through some of this information, and the example you gave, you said, it goes through it, and in 6 or 8 seconds, we've got the answer. I'm wondering here, and I don't know, because again, I have not played with Copilot that much, which is why I'm asking you this. I'm wondering, is Copilot starting to incorporate some of the back-end technology that allows both the research and the reasoner models to work, say, with ChatGPT or some of the other tools? Because I have run research projects and done reasoner prompts with some of them, and I think I had one research project that took an hour and a half, and they've said it can take up to 8 hours sometimes to work through this. So is Copilot incorporating any of those tools yet? And if so, what can you expect out of that performance?
Yes. So where I would say, and I don't know a better way to explain this, and I'd rather be honest than not.
Yeah, please.
Will Copilot be the cutting edge of AI? Probably not. No, and I think that's fair to say, because we're putting in the containerized, we're putting it within its world, its realm, to say we're not going to do all that. So could there come a day that you could do those long ones? Sure. The max that I've ever seen it really run is, 8 to 10 seconds to pull you an answer. Beyond that, it's not going to do your reasoner as you're looking quite yet. Also, the fact is, hundreds of millions of people using it, pulling from your own data, a lot of data sources there. It's really tried to optimize and pulling your data that you have. And the fact that it can go through hundreds of thousands of emails, pretty cool if you ask me. But no, doing some more of those advanced, not there yet. Someday, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, and I just thought that it was worth asking, because what I have seen is Copilot continue to evolve and get better and better over time, and incorporate more of the abilities of some of the frontier models that are out there. And that's one of the reasons I like playing with the frontier models, is I want the new shiny toy, right? I don't want, the standard sedan, but that's really what we're talking about here, is something that's reliable, it's secure, and maybe Microsoft needs to send us all a check for this episode, but I think it's a very safe environment that they have created for AI. So that's my assessment.
Oh, Chad, did we make you a convert?
Oh, I've been all in on Microsoft for a number of years. It pains me to say it, but they do a very good job on a lot of fronts. They really do.
And that's what and a lot of times, and I know we're using Zoom here, and even when they say, compare Teams to Zoom, things like that, or compare, Google to Microsoft, or, Microsoft, I would say, in all honesty, are they ever going to be the cutting edge, the leader of all the tools? No, but the fact you get that implementation, you get it all integrated together, that's really where it's going to win the bundle.
Yeah, very well. Bundle. So let's shift gears in our remaining time here. And I'm interested, since we started talking, I asked you that question about reasoners and the research models. How do you see Microsoft's AI strategy evolving with Copilot? And where do you see this tool going over the next 12 to 18 months, in as much as we've got any visibility into what that looks like in AI land? Because it could change tomorrow, as we all know.
Asterisk, subject to change.
Yeah, exactly. Your answer is good for this very second that you're giving it.
If they continue, and I say they, the proverbial they, if Microsoft continues on the path that it's on, Copilot's going to be in everybody's hands and everywhere. That's their end goal. I see this really as, is it their golden goose in terms of it's going to make a whole bunch of money? In the end, I think it will, but with the cost of setting up all of the tools in the back end, it's $30 per user per month for the Microsoft 365 Copilot. So, it's kind of up there, but it's not the most expensive of AI. I think more than anything, and really, Satya Nadella, when you look at kind of the, Microsoft top end global, is they want to democratize AI, put it in everybody's hands securely. So that's why when you're looking at Copilot plus PCs, it's going to be in your computer, whether you like it or not. there's going to be a Copilot key on your keyboard to run commands. So if you think you're going to run away from it, good luck. It's being put into every single type of app, every single, Microsoft branded everything. Bing has it free. You can use it, sign and log in. So I foresee it's only going to get bigger and bigger. Where they're going to put it in next, no idea, but yeah, coming to a store near you.
Jan, I'm going to turn to you for a second because I know I've had the privilege of attending one or two of your workshops over the years, and I know that you focus on more than just the Microsoft stack. We haven't mentioned the dreaded G word here in our conversation today, but they come to mind. And my question to you is, I'm interested in your assessment about other productivity platforms and the competitive responses that you think that they might make, given where Microsoft is with Copilot. Because I think it's very clear that, and if this episode didn't make it clear to our listeners, it should, that Microsoft has a distinct advantage in terms of the application of AI in a safe and secure environment. So I'm interested, what other responses do you think might occur with some of the competitors out there, like, again, Google, or some of the others?
Well, I love that you think I have that answer. This is great, but I'll give you perspective. So in CEO peer groups, when I'm presenting, there's always 5% of the companies are on Google. So I always have to represent both sides.
Sure.
So definitely not a Google expert, but what I have been noticing, and so I'm guessing it's going to continue to change, is that I've been fascinating how Google and Microsoft's models have been switching their business models. So Google traditionally was like partnering with a lot of, third-party apps, and Microsoft is kind of in its own world. And Rafe, I'd be curious your perspective on this too. But what I'm seeing happening now is Google's building out organically within its own suite. And companies are saying they don't use Zoom anymore, they're using Google Meet. So they're going the inverse. And Microsoft is finally playing well with Apple. Like, what's going on there? So Microsoft's going the opposite way, where it's building more integration. So that's an observation I have. Definitely seeing Microsoft or Google's getting significantly better with security, but definitely don't consider myself a Google expert. And as you can tell on this call, I'm not even the detailed Microsoft expert. I have amazing team members like Rafe that know what they're doing. So that's my thoughts.
And from my perspective, I'd say, Google is fighting to keep up, especially in that enterprise business space. I mean, you look at Gemini, you look at the other, competitors out there. I have an Android, Gemini's on there. I still use it for my personal. I have a Google personal. So there's still a world now. The fact that, Microsoft has so many more enterprise customers, it's such a large organization with the weight and the pull behind it. I think it's going to be hard from the enterprise, other AI models, competitors to keep up. There's still, don't get me wrong, there's still some really good tools out there and, personal use, not related to work. I dabble in the others. I dabble in Gemini. We have some fun there.
Sure.
But you have to, or else you don't know what's going on out there. But when it really, if you look at, this is a business perspective, this is a business world, Microsoft's going to win out. But yeah, it's usually, and I have to throw this in there, is Google works for a lot of smaller businesses, and usually they call me in to then say, we've reached a stage where we need more customization, we need more type of just security protocols, everything in place. Then we move them over to Microsoft. So I don't want to say Google's bad, but
there are it does seem like there's a big question with Google being so heavy in the schools. Like, what's going to happen when that transition of those people coming in? Is it going to shift? I think that's going to be a pretty hard shift, though.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that your insight about Google's penetration into the K through 12 system, as well as higher ed, is well made. Your other point, though, about it being a hard shift or a hard lift, yeah, absolutely.
And are those the organizations that are going to use Gemini, that are going to use AI?
Right.
Maybe not, because you don't want to have your students asking all the questions, like, how bad is my teacher? You probably don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Or how great. We'll look at the positive, right?
I'll ask you both here as our time is drawing to a close. Second to last question for each of you, since you mentioned, Rafe, that you use other tools outside the Microsoft ecosystem. What's your favorite AI tool that you're using right now that is not Microsoft related?
Well, I mean, can you consider ChatGPT to be not Microsoft related? It's Yeah, it's up in the air.
We
there.
can call it, it's ChatGPT sugar daddy, right?
Okay, yes. Okay. So the precursor to it. So yeah. So ChatGPT is my go-to outside of Copilot for my personal account, for my personal Microsoft, all of that there. But I mean, and I've tried the others because you just need to know what's out there. And I don't want to poo-poo any bad ones, but Grok, nah, not my fave.
Yeah, fair enough. Jan, how about you?
Well, all I gotta say is I'm that busy executive that Rafe was talking about. I don't have time to play with extra tools, so nothing.
Oh,
Sorry to disappoint.
Spoken like a true productivity expert.
Yeah, hey, there you go. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. I said that was the second to last question. Last question for both of you here today. Is there anything out there that we didn't cover that you really think leaders and executives need to know about Copilot, the Microsoft stack, the productivity tools that are out there? Is there anything that would really move the needle that we didn't get to today?
I guess the one thing I would add is one of the things we hear from a lot of our clients is it's just nice to be all in with the same software. So you have the same interface and it removes that learning curve that it's different on different applications. So again, we look at things from a productivity standpoint and the fact that clients will complain like they have to log into all these different systems, but when you're logged into 365, you're logged in one. So that's what we pay attention to. If we can streamline workflow, have people work smarter, it makes sense. So that's another angle to consider.
And the only other thing I'd throw in there is don't be afraid of it. We work with some organizations that are like, AI, any type of AI is really out there. I don't know if we're ready for it. Jump on sooner rather than later, even if it's something like a pilot. Let's start with 2 people. Let's start with 5 because it's coming down the train tracks. There's no way to get off of it. So even if you're going to say we're going to start with a few people, let's put in some, guardrails in place. Let's get an IT policy in place. Do it now. Think of it now. It's not going anywhere, and it's only going to become more of their daily life. So
very good.
We'll hold your hand. There's people out there that'll hold your hand.
Well, we do.
You don't have to do it alone.
I was waiting for you to throw another transportation metaphor into there. You talked about pilots. You talked about railroad tracks. I thought maybe there was a nautical reference coming, Rafe. You've disappointed me.
Sail into the future, Chad. Sail into the future.
There we go. See? You landed that plane or docked that boat or whatever it was. Well done. Oh my gosh.
Love it.
Jan, Rafe, this was just a pleasure speaking with you both today. I really appreciate your insights on Microsoft. And as we talked about earlier, things are changing so fast, so rapidly. I'm sure we're going to have you back to talk more about Copilot, maybe even next week. I don't know. We'll see what they come out with between now and then. Exactly. Between now and whenever our subsequent episode is, for our listeners that want to learn more about your work, get in touch with you, learn more about CTC Productivity and what your organization can do for them, what is the best way for them to reach you?
Go to ctcproductivity.com. There's a contact page there. That's probably the easiest. And you'll have an initial meeting with me. So love to chat with anybody, and we're happy to answer questions. So
perfect. And I can attest that you are absolutely wonderful and very accessible. So I encourage our listeners to definitely reach out and take advantage of that very generous offer. So thank you both very much for your time today. This was absolutely wonderful. I appreciated having you on.
Thank you. Thanks, Chad.
Glad to be here.
And for our listeners, thank you for once again tuning into AI for the C-Suite, where we're committed to helping middle market leaders thrive during the exponential age. If you found value in today's discussion, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on all the socials, and visit our site, aiforthec-suite.com. Join us next time as we continue to unlock the potential of AI for your organization. And until then, keep your algorithms running, your leadership evolving, and your AI in check. Take care, everybody.